In fairy tales, witches always wear silly black hats and black cloaks, and they ride on broomsticks. But this is not a fairy tale. This is about real witches. Listen very carefully. Never forget what is coming next. Real witches dress in ordinary clothes and look very much like ordinary women. They live in ordinary houses and they work in ordinary jobs. That is why they are so hard to catch. A real witch hates children with a red-hot, sizzling hatred that is more sizzling and red-hot than any hatred you could possibly imagine. A real witch spends all her time plotting to get rid of the children in her particular territory. Her mind will always be plotting and scheming and churning and burning and whizzing and fizzing with murderous, bloodthirsty thoughts.
Which child? Exactly which child shall I choose for my next squelching?
A real witch gets the same pleasure from squelching a child as you get from eating a plateful of strawberries and thick cream. She reckons on doing away with one child a week.
One child a week is 52 a year. Squish them and squiggle them and make them disappear.
That is the motto of all witches. As far as children are concerned, a real witch is easily the most dangerous of all the living creatures on Earth. What makes her doubly dangerous is the fact that she doesn't look dangerous. If a tiger were able to make himself look like a large dog with a waggy tail, you would probably go up and pat him on the head, and that would be the end of you. It is the same with witches. They all look and sound like nice ladies. Listen to these two voices.
Hello. Are you sitting comfortably?
I hope this story isn't scaring you.
Well, which was the witch? That is a difficult question, but it is one that every child must try to answer. For all you know, a witch might be living next door to you right now. Now. I myself had two separate encounters with witches before I was 8 years old. From the first, I escaped unharmed. But on the second occasion, I was not so lucky. Things happened to me that will probably make you scream when you hear about them. The fact that I am still here and able to speak to you is due entirely to my wonderful grandmother. She was Norwegian. The Norwegians know all about witches, for Norway, with its black forests and icy mountains, is where the first witches came from. My parents were also Norwegian, but they lived and worked in England, where I was born and went to school. Twice a year, we visited my grandmother in Norway. This old lady, as far as I could gather, was the only surviving relative we had, and I absolutely adored her. Soon after my 7th birthday, my parents took me as usual to spend Christmas with my grandmother. One terrible afternoon, they were both killed in a car accident, and I finished up back in my grandmother's house with her arms around me tight.
What are we going to do now, Grandmama?
Oh, you will stay here with me, and I will look after you.
Aren't I going back to England?
No. Heaven shall take my soul, but Norway shall keep my bones.
The next day, in order that we might both try to forget our great sadness, my grandmother started telling me stories. She was apparently a great expert on witches.
And my witch stories, unlike the others, are not imaginary tales. They are gospel truth. And what is far worse, those witches are still with us. They're all around us.
Are you really being truthful, Grandmama?
Oh, now listen. I have known no less than 5 children who have simply vanished off the face of this earth, never to be seen again. The witches took them.
Tell me about them.
Wait while I light my cigar.
You're You're the only grandmother I know who smokes cigars.
Very likely. Now, the first child I knew who disappeared was called Ragnhild Hansen. She was about 8 at the time, and she was playing with her little sister on the lawn. When her mother looked for her, she had gone. She went away with the tall lady in white gloves, the little sister said. She took Ragnhild by the hand and led her away. No one ever saw her again.
What happened to the other 4 children?
They vanished, just as Ragnhild did. In every case, a strange lady was seen outside the house just before it happened.
But how did they vanish?
The second one was very peculiar. There was a family called Christiansen. They had an oil painting in the living room, which they were very proud of. The painting showed some ducks in the yard outside the farmhouse. One day, their daughter, Solveig, came home from school eating an apple. She said a nice lady had given it to her on the street. The next morning, little Solveig was not in her bed. No one could find her. Then, all of a sudden, her father shouted, "There she is!" He pointed at the painting, and sure enough, Solveig was in it. She was standing in the farmyard in the act of throwing bread to the ducks. She was part of the painting, just a picture painted on the canvas.
Did you ever see that painting, Grandmama?
Many times. And the peculiar thing was that little Solveig kept changing her position in the picture. One day she would be looking out at the farmhouse window. Another day she would be outside holding a duck in her arms.
Did you ever see her moving in the picture?
Nobody did. She was always motionless, just a figure painted in oils. It was all very odd. And what was most odd of all was that as the years went by, she kept growing older in the picture until, all at once, 54 years after it all happened, she disappeared from the picture altogether.
That's 2 you've told me about. What happened to the third one?
The third one was little Birgit Svensson. One day, she started growing feathers all over her body. Within a month, she turned into a large white chicken. She even laid eggs. Her mother made omelettes out of them. Delicious they were.
But she didn't disappear.
No, not Birgit. She lived on for many years, laying her brown eggs.
You said all of them disappeared.
I made the mistake. I can't remember everything.
What happened to the 4th child?
The 4th was a boy called Harald. He was turned to stone.
Real stone.
Granite. They still keep him in the house. A little stone statue. Visitors lean their umbrellas up against him.
You told me there were 5 altogether. What happened to the last one?
Number 5 was an interesting case. A 9-year-old boy called Leif was summer holidaying with his family on the fjord. He dived into the water, and his father noticed that he stayed under for an unusually long time, and he came to the surface at last. He wasn't Leif anymore.
What was he, Grandmama?
He was a porpoise. As friendly as could be.
How did they know that the porpoise was actually Leif?
He talked to them.
But wasn't there the most tremendous fuss when this happened?
Not much. Here in Norway, we are used to that sort of thing. There are witches everywhere. Now, come, it's time you went to bed. Now, come along. I'll tuck you in. And tomorrow evening, I'll tell you more about witches. Tonight, I am going to tell you how to recognize a witch when you see one.
Can you always be sure?
No, you can't. But you can make a pretty good guess.
Be careful with your cigar ash, Grandmama. I wouldn't want you to catch fire.
Oh, never fear, my darling. Now, a real witch is certain always to be wearing gloves when you meet her.
Why?
Because instead of fingernails, She has long, thin, curvy claws, like a cat. And she wears the gloves to hide them.
Mama used to wear gloves.
Not in the house. Witches wear gloves even in the house. The second thing to remember is that the real witch is always bald.
Bald?
Bald, as a boiled egg.
How horrid.
Disgusting.
If she's bald, she'll be easy to spot.
Not at all. A real witch wears a first-class wig to hide her baldness.
So that doesn't help much either.
None of these things is any good on its own. It's only when you put them all together that they begin to make a little sense. Mind you, these wigs do cause a rather serious problem for witches.
What problem?
They make the scalp itch most terribly. It sets up a frightful itch on the bald skin. Wig rash, the witches call it.
What other things must I look for to recognize a witch?
Look for the nose holes. Witches have slightly larger nose holes than ordinary people.
Why?
For smelling with. A witch can actually smell out a child who is standing on the other side of the street on a pitch-black night.
She couldn't smell me. I've just had a bath.
Oh, yes, she could. The cleaner you happen to be, the more smelly you are to a witch.
But that doesn't make sense, Grandmama.
Oh, yes, it does. It isn't the dirt the witch is smelling, it is you. The smell that drives a witch mad comes right out of your skin. Stink waves, the witches call them. When you haven't washed for a week and your skin is all covered with dirt, then the stink waves can't come oozing out nearly so strongly.
I shall never have a bath again.
Just don't have one too often. Once a month is quite enough for a sensible child.
Oh, Grandmama, I do love you. But if it's a dark night, how can a witch smell the difference between a child and a grown-up?
Because grown-ups don't give out stink waves. Only children do that.
I'm not giving them out at this very moment, am I?
No, not to me you aren't. But to a witch, you would be smelling absolutely disgusting.
What would I be smelling of?
Dogs' droppings. Fresh dogs' droppings.
That simply is not true. I know I'm not smelling of dog's droppings, stale or fresh.
There's no point in arguing about it. If you see a woman holding her nose as she passes you in the street, she could easily be a witch.
Tell me what else to look for in a witch.
The eyes. Look carefully at the eyes. If she is a witch, the little black dot in the middle of each eye will keep changing color. You will see fire, and you will see ice dancing right in the very center. It will send shivers running all over your skin.
Are there other things?
Of course. You don't seem to understand that witches are not actually women at all. They look like women, and they are able to act like women, but in actual fact, they are demons in human shape.
What else is different about them?
Witches have no toes.
No toes? Then what do they have?
They just have feet with square ends and no toes at all.
Does that make it difficult to walk?
Not at all. But it does give them a problem with their shoes. A witch has the most awful job squeezing her feet into women's neat, pointed shoes.
Isn't that terribly uncomfortable?
Extremely uncomfortable.
Are those the only differences then, Grandmama?
Just one more. Their spit is blue.
Blue?
Blue, as a bilberry.
Nobody can have blue spit.
Witches can.
Can you notice the blue spit if a witch is talking to you?
Only if you look carefully. But it doesn't show much.
It would if she spat.
Oh, witches never spit. They daren't. So, there you are. That's about all I can tell you.
The next day, we heard that my father had left instructions in his will that I should continue to go to school in England.
Oh, Grandmama, You don't want to go and live in our English house. I know you don't.
Of course I don't. But I am afraid I must. Your next school term starts in a few days. There are not as many witches in England as there are in Norway.
I'm sure I won't meet one.
I sincerely hope you won't, because those English witches are probably the most vicious in the whole world.
Tell me what those English witches do.
Their favorite ruse is to mix a powder that will turn a child into some creature that all grown-ups hate. Often it is a slug. Then the grown-ups step on the slug and squish it without knowing it's a child.
That's perfectly beastly.
Oh, I've known English witches who have turned children into pheasants the very day before the pheasant shooting season.
So they get shot?
Of course they get shot. Then they are plucked and roasted and eaten for supper. It gives the English witches great pleasure to watch the grown-ups doing away with their own children.
I really don't want to go to England, Grandmama.
Of course you don't. Nor do I. But I am afraid we've got to.
Does every single country in the world have its witches?
Wherever you find people, you find witches.
And do they all know one another?
They do not. A witch only knows the witches in her own country. Once a year, the witches of each separate country hold their own secret meeting to receive a lecture from the Grand High Witch of all the world.
Where do they hold these meetings?
I've heard it said that they just book into an hotel like any other group of women who are holding a meeting.
Where does the Grand High Witch live when she's at home?
Nobody knows. If we knew that, then she could be rooted out and destroyed. Witchophiles all over the world have spent their lives trying to discover the secret headquarters of the Grand High Witch.
What is a witchophile, Grandmama?
Or a person who studies witches and knows a lot about them.
Are you a witchophile?
I am a retired witchophile. I'm too old to be active any longer. But when I was younger, I traveled all over the globe trying to track down the Grand High Witch. I never came even close to succeeding.
Is she rich?
She's rolling. She has a machine which makes all the money she wants, and she dishes it out to witches everywhere.
But Grandmama, if nobody has ever seen the Grand High Witch, how can you be so sure she exists?
Nobody has ever seen the devil, but we know he exists.
The next morning we sailed for England, and soon I was back in our old family house in Kent, but this time with my grandmother to look after me. At the bottom of the garden there was an enormous conker tree, and Timmy, my best friend, and I built a tree house high up in its branches. One Saturday afternoon I was working on it by myself when I was suddenly aware that I was being watched by a woman immediately below me. She was smiling in a most peculiar way.
I have a present for you.
Gloves. She's wearing gloves.
Come down out of that tree, little boy, and I shall give you the most exciting present you have ever had.
It's a snake. A little green snake.
It's tame. If you come down here, I shall give him to you.
Oh, Grandmama, come and help me.
I panicked and shot up that enormous tree like a monkey. I stayed up there for hours, and it began to grow dark. At last, I heard my grandmother calling me.
Come down at once, it's past supper time.
Has that woman gone?
What woman?
The woman in the black gloves. Has she gone?
Yes, she's gone. I'll look after you. You come down now.
My grandmother led me into the house and gave me a cup of hot cocoa. I told her all that had happened.
You know what this means? It means that there is a witch in our district. From now on, I'm not letting you walk alone to school.
That was my first witch, but it wasn't my last. The Easter holidays came and went, and summer term began at school. We were going back to Norway for the summer holiday, but then my grandmother caught pneumonia, and although she got better, the doctor said she was not fit to go on such a long journey.
It's too far. It would be very dangerous. But I tell you what you can do. You can take your grandson to a nice hotel on the south coast of England instead.
Oh, no.
Do you want your grandmother to die?
Never.
Then don't let her go on a long journey this summer. And stop her smoking those vile black cigars.
The doctor got his way about the holiday, but not about the cigars. Rooms were booked for us in a place called the Hotel Magnificent in the famous seaside town of Bournemouth. Just before we left for Bournemouth, my grandmother gave me, as a consolation present, 2 white mice in a cage, and of course, I took them with me. I named them William and Mary, and in the hotel I set out right away to teach them tricks. On our very first morning at the hotel, the chambermaid saw them. She complained to the manager. We had to go and see him in his office.
I cannot permit mice in my hotel, madam.
How dare you say that when your rotten hotel is full of rats anyway?
Rats! There are no rats in this hotel.
You had better get the rat catcher in at once before I report you to the public health authorities.
You're not being serious, madam.
I was never more serious in my life. Are you, or are you not, going to allow my grandson to keep his white mice in his room?
May I suggest a compromise, madam? I will permit him to keep them in his room as long as they are never allowed out of the cage. How's that?
That will suit us very well.
My grandmother returned to our rooms, well pleased. But it was my intention to continue training my white mice, and you cannot train mice in a cage. I decided to search for a secluded place away from the watchful eyes of the chambermaid, who told me,
"The first mouse I see out of its cage will be drowned in a bucket of water by the hall porter."
I couldn't risk that. So, with a mouse in each trouser pocket, I wandered through the enormous hotel in search of a secret spot. As I crossed the terrace, I met Bruno Jenkins, a boy who was staying at the hotel with his parents. I didn't care for him. He was one of those boys who is always eating something.
Oh, it's you! I bet my father makes more money than your father.
I expect he does.
Yes, and guess how many cars we've got?
I'm not really interested.
I bet you are. We've got 3. 3 cars. So there.
What are you doing?
I'm roasting these ants with my magnifying glass. Look. See? I focus the sun through the magnifying glass onto the ant, and it all shrivels up. I like watching them burn.
That's horrible. Stop doing it.
Let's see you stop me.
There.
Oh, no! Look what you've done. You smashed my magnifying glass. My father is going to get you for this.
He ran off, presumably to find his wealthy father. I continued my search. The ground floor of the hotel was a maze of public rooms. None of them was empty. At last I came to the ballroom. There was a notice on the door.
This room is reserved for the annual meeting of the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. But there's nobody here. The meeting must be over. I can go and hide behind that big screen at the back of the room, and nobody will ever see me. What a splendid place this is. Nice thick green carpet, ideal for mouse training. Out you come, mice. Let's see how well you walk along this piece of string.
This way, ladies.
Oh, no. It's the hotel manager. The meeting isn't over. It's just beginning. I'll just have to stay here and hope nobody finds me.
Well, ladies, I'm sure you will be quite comfortable in here. If there's anything we can do for you, do not hesitate to let me know.
Good. The manager's gone. I should be all right with these kind ladies. Perhaps I should suggest that they come and do a bit of cruelty to children prevention at my school. I can see them quite well through this crack in the screen. There must be about 200 of them. Gosh, look at that lady scratching the back of her head. I'm sure she'd be embarrassed if she knew I'm watching. Wait a minute, they're all scratching their heads. They must have got nits. No, they're wearing wigs. They're all wearing wigs and gloves. I must get out of here. Oh no, they're chaining the doors. Nobody can get in or out.
My blood turned to ice. One false move, one cough, one sneeze, one nose blow, one little sound of any sort, and it wouldn't be one witch that got me. It would be 200. I peered through the crack in the screen. All the women, or rather the witches, were now sitting motionless, staring at somebody who had suddenly appeared on the platform. She was tiny, probably no more than 4.5 feet tall, about 25 or 6, and very pretty. She had on a long black dress, and she wore black gloves that came up to her elbows. She didn't look like a witch at all. Then very slowly, she raised her hands to her face. I saw her gloved fingers unhooking something behind her ears, and then she lifted her face clean away. It was a mask. The face underneath the mask was a fearsome and ghastly sight. There was something terribly wrong with it, something foul and putrid and decayed. I could see the skin all cankered and worm-eaten, as though maggots were working away in there. I knew immediately that this was none other than the Grand High Witch herself.
Are the doors chained and bolted?
The doors are chained and bolted, Your Grandness.
You may remove your gloves.
They've all got long claws, like Grandmother said.
You may remove your shoes.
Oh, they've got no toes. It's revolting. It looks as if the toes have been cut off with a carving knife.
You may remove your wigs and get some fresh air onto your spotty scalps.
Oh, heavens! Oh, help! Oh, Lord, have mercy on me. These foul, bald-headed females are child killers. Every one of them, and I can't escape. Will they be able to smell me? When did I last have a bath? I don't think I've had one since I've been here. Perhaps I've got a chance after all. My hands are filthy. The stink waves can't possibly get out through all this dirt.
Witches of Inkland. Miserable witches. Useless, lazy witches. You are a heap of idle, good-for-nothing worms. I am having my breakfast this morning, and I am looking out of the window at the beach. And what am I seeing? I am seeing thousands of rotten, repulsive little children playing on the sands. Why have you not got rid of them? These filthy, smelly children? I am asking you why! Children stink out the world. We do not want these children around here. One child a week is no good to me. Is that the best you can do? Better is no good either. My orders are that every single child in this country shall be rubbed out, squashed, squirted, skvitted, and frittered before I come here again in 1 year's time.
All of them? We can't possibly wipe out all of them.
Who dares to argue with me? It was you, was it not?
I didn't mean it, Your Grandness.
You dare to argue with me?
I was just talking to myself. I swear it, Your Grandness.
A stupid witch who answers back must burn until her bones are black.
No!
A foolish witch without a brain must sizzle in the fiery flames. An idiotic witch like you must roast upon the barbecue.
Oh, forgive me, oh, Your Grandness. I didn't mean it.
A witch who dares to say I'm wrong will not be with us very long. Frizzled like a fritter, cooked like a carrot. You will never see her again. Now we can get down to business. Children are revolting. We will wipe them all away. We will flush them down the drain.
Yes! Wipe them away!
are foul and filthy.
They are!
Children are dirty and stinky.
Dirty and stinky!
Children are smelling of dogs' droppings. They are worse than dogs' droppings. So now I am having a plan for getting rid of every single child in the whole of Inkland. Yes! We shall swish them and swallow them, and we shall make them to disappear, every single smelly little brat in Inkland, in one stroke. Shut up and listen! Each and every one of you is to go back to your hometowns immediately and resign from your jobs. And then you will be going out and you will be buying sweet shops. You will be having no trouble in getting what you want because you will be offering 4 times as much as the shop is worth. I have brought with me 6 trunks stuffed full of English banknotes, all of them homemade. So, each of you is owning a magnificent sweet shop. The next move is that each of you will be announcing in the window of your shop that on a certain day you will be having a great gala opening with free sweets and chocks to every child.
Oh, that'll bring them in, the greedy little brutes. They'll be fighting to get through the door.
Next, you will prepare yourselves for this great gala opening by filling every chalk and every sweet in your shop with my very latest and greatest magic formula. This is known as Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker.
Delayed action mouse maker? She's done it again! Her Grandness has concocted yet another of her wondrous magic child killers.
How do we make it a brilliant one?
Exercise patience. First, I am explaining to you how my Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker is working. Listen carefully.
We are listening!
The Delayed Action Mouse Maker is a green liquid, and 1 droplet in each chalk or sweet will be quite enough. So here is what happens. Child eats chalk, which has in it Delayed Action Mouse Maker liquid. Child goes home feeling fine. Child goes to bed, still feeling fine. Child wakes up in the morning, still feeling fine. Formula, you understand, is delayed action and is not working yet.
We understand, oh brainy one.
But when does it start working?
Yes!
It is starting to work at exactly 9 o'clock when the child is arriving at school. Child arrives at school. Delayed action mouse maker immediately starts to work. Child starts to shrink. Child is starting to grow fur. Child is starting to grow tail. All is happening in precisely 26 seconds. After 26 seconds, child is not a child any longer. It is a mouse! Classrooms will all be swarming with mice. Chaos and pandemonium will be reigning in every school in Inkland. Teachers will be hopping up and down. Women teachers will be standing on desks and holding up skirts and yelling, help, help, help! And what is happening next in every school? Mouse traps! All over school, mouse traps is going snappity-snap, and mouse heads is rolling across the floor like marbles. All over Inkland, in every school in Inkland, noise of snapping mouse traps will be heard. Down with children, do them in, boil their bones and fry their skin. Bish them, squish them, bash them, mash them, break them, shake them, slash them, smash them. Offer chocks with magic powder, say, eat up, then say it louder. Cram them full of sticky eats, send them home still guzzling sweets. And in the morning, little fools go marching off to separate schools. A girl feels sick and goes all pale. She yells, hey, look, I've grown a tail. A boy who's standing next to her screams, help, I think I'm growing fur. Another shouts, oh, we look like freaks. There's whiskers A boy who was extremely tall cries out, "What's wrong? I'm growing small!" 4 tiny legs begin to sprout from everybody round about. And all at once, all in a trice, there are no children, only mice! In every school is mice galore, all running around the schoolroom floor. And all the poor, demented teachers is yelling, "Hey, who are these creatures?" They stand upon the desks and shout, "Get out, you filthy mice! Get out! Will someone fetch some mousetraps, please? And don't forget to bring the cheese." Now mousetraps come, and every trap goes snip, snip, and snappy, snap. The mousetraps have a powerful spring. The springs go crack and snap and ping. Oh, it's lovely noise for us to hear. It's music to a witch's ear. Dead mice in every place around, piled 2 feet deep upon the ground. The teachers searching left and right, but not a single child in sight. The teachers cry, "What's going on? Oh, where have all the children gone? It's 9:30, and as a rule, they're never late as this for school." Poor teachers don't know what to do. Some sit and read, and just a few amuse themselves throughout the day by sweeping all the mice away. And all us witches shout, "Hooray!"
I hope you haven't forgotten that while this was going on, I was still stuck behind the screen with one eye glued to the crack. I was in constant terror that one of the witches in the back row was going to get a whiff of my presence through those special nose holes of hers. But the witches seemed to be thinking of nothing except the Grand High Witch and her great plan for wiping out the children of England.
She started to show us!
The brainly one has turned 2 children into mice!
Oh no, they're my mice. They've run up onto the platform.
Fetch the mouse trap!
Quiet! These mice are nothing to do with me. These mice are pet mice, obviously belonging to some repellent child in the hotel. A boy it will be, because girls are not keeping pet mice.
A boy! A filthy, smelly little boy!
Silence! You know perfectly well you must do nothing to draw attention to yourselves while you are living in this hotel.
They're talking about
He
me.
is not important. I shall smell him out and turn him into a mackerel and have him dished up for supper. Now, pay attention. I will now give you the recipe for concocting Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker. Get out pencils and paper. First, you have to make the child small very quickly. So you take the wrong end of a telescope and you boil it until it gets soft. And while this is going on, you take exactly 45 brown mice and you cut off their tails with a carving knife and you fry the tails in hair oil until they are nice and crisp.
What do we do with all those mice who have had their tails cut off?
You simmer them in frog juice for 1 hour. Now, we need something that will have a delayed action result, so the recipe will not start working until 9 o'clock the next day.
Tell us the great secret!
Here is what you do. You set your alarm clock to go off at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then you roast it in the oven until it is crisp and tender. Are you writing this down? Next, you take your boiled telescope and your fried mouse tails and your cooked mice and your roasted alarm clock, and all together you put them into the mixer. Then add to it the yolk of a Gruntle's egg.
I'm getting a bit old to go bird's nesting. Those ruddy gruntles always nest very high up.
Then you also mix in the claw of a crab cruncher, the beak of a blabber snatch, the snout of a grubble squirt, and the tongue of a cat springer. I trust you're not having any trouble finding those?
Not at all! We will hear and trap the crab cruncher and shoot the grubble squirt and catch the cat springer in his burrow!
Excellent. When you have mixed everything together in the mixer, you will have a most marvelous-looking green liquid. Put 1 drop into a sweet, and at 9 o'clock the next morning, the child who ate it will turn into a mouse in 26 seconds. But 1 word of warning. Never increase the dose, and never give more than 1 sweet to each child. An overdose of delayed action mouse maker will mess up the timing of the alarm clock and cause the child to turn into a mouse too early. A large overdose might even have an instant effect, and you wouldn't want that, would you? You wouldn't want the children turning into mice right there in your sweet shops. That would give the game away. So be very careful. Do not overdose. I am now going to prove to you that this recipe is working to perfection. You understand that you can set the alarm clock to go off at any time you like. So yesterday I am personally preparing a small quantity of the magic formula to give you a public demonstration. But I have set the alarm to go off at 3:30 this afternoon, and that is in precisely 7 minutes' time. So what am I doing yesterday with this magic liquid? I will tell you what I am doing. I am putting 1 droplet onto a very squishy chocolate bar, and I am giving this bar to a repulsive, smelly little boy who is hanging around the lobby of this hotel. And I said to him, "Would you like some more?" And he said, "Yes." So I said, "I will give you 6 bars if you will meet me in the ballroom of this hotel at 3:25 tomorrow afternoon." 6 bars, cried the greedy little swine. "I'll be there." And if I am not mistaken, that is him banging on the door.
Let me in! Where are those chocolate bars you promised me?
Quick, put on your wigs, put on your gloves, put on your shoes, and I will replace my pretty face. Now, remove the chains from the door and let the greedy, smelly creature in.
Why, hello, little man. How lovely to see you.
It's that awful boy Bruno.
I've come to collect my chocolate bars. Dish them out.
Darling boy, I have them all ready for you. Come up here onto the platform.
Okay, where are my 6 bars of chocolates?
The time is 30 seconds before 3:30.
What the heck's going on?
20 seconds.
Give me my chocolates.
10 seconds.
Give me the chocolate and let me get out of here.
3, 2, 1. We have ignition. This smelly brat, this filthy scum, this horrid little mouse will very soon become a lovely little mouse.
He's turned into a mouse. They've turned Bruno into a mouse.
She's done it!
It's fantastic.
It's colossal! You are a miracle, oh brainy one!
Now for the mouse trap. I want to squelch him and chop off his head.
Oh no! I don't want to see this. Bruno Jenkins may have been a bit of a stinker, but I don't want to watch him having his head chopped off.